2 days ago, I received a letter that was supposed to destroy me. My parents made their choice. They cut me out, erased my name, and expected me to disappear quietly like I always had. But they forgot something crucial. They forgot I still had one card left to play. So I picked up the phone, called my lawyer, and said 5 words that would detonate everything they'd carefully built. Sell the villa. 48 hours. What happened next tore my family apart and exposed secrets that were never meant to see daylight. This is my story. I was 9 years old, the first time I realized I didn't belong in my own home. My name is Samantha Rhodes, and I grew up in Brookfield Heights, Virginia, in a house so grand it had a name. Windermere Estate. 18 rooms, marble floors that echoed when you walked alone at night, and gardens so perfect they looked painted. My mother, Margaret Rhodes, treated that house like a museum. Everything had its place. Everyone had their role. Except me. Margaret never left the house without her pearls. 3 strands always. She'd stand in front of the gilded mirror in the foyer every morning, adjusting them with fingers that never trembled, never showed weakness. My father, Charles Rhodes, ran a financial firm downtown. He ran our family the same way he ran board meetings. Cold, efficient, calculated. My older brother, Nathan, was born to inherit everything. The firm, the estate, the Rhodes name. He knew it too. Walked around like he owned the air we breathed. My younger sister Emily was the darling, the one who could do no wrong. Blonde curls, bright smile, the kind of child people stopped to admire in the street. And then there was me, the middle child, the one who didn't quite fit. I remember the day I broke the crystal vase. I was dusting the library trying to help, trying to be useful. My sleeve caught the edge and it shattered across the Persian rug like 1,000 tiny diamonds. I froze. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. Margaret's heels clicked down the hallway before I could even think to move. She stood in the doorway, her face carved from ice. But she didn't yell about the vase. She looked at me with something worse than anger. Disappointment, disgust. Every time you touch something, Samantha, you ruin it. Nathan was behind her. He smirked. That awful, knowing smirk that said he was glad it was me and not him. Emily peeked around the corner and giggled, her little hand covering her mouth. My father appeared for exactly 3 seconds. He adjusted his tie, glanced at the broken glass, then at me, and walked away without a word. That was the thing about Charles Rhodes. His silence cut deeper than any scream. That night, I couldn't sleep. I crept downstairs for water and heard voices in the drawing room. My mother and her sister, Aunt Patricia. The door was cracked just enough. Patricia's voice was careful, measured. "Margaret, you treat her like she's not even yours." I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. My mother's response came quick and cold. "She's not meant for this family's future." She never was. I didn't understand what she meant. Not then, I was 9. But those words burrowed into my chest and lived there. The attic became my refuge, a place where no one bothered to look for me. I'd spend hours up there sorting through old trunks and forgotten furniture. One afternoon, I found a metal lockbox pushed behind a rack of my grandmother's old coats. It was dusty, the kind of dust that meant no one had touched it in years. There was a label on top, written in my father's precise handwriting, R-3, Samantha, restricted, my name. My hands shook as I tried to open it. The lock was rusted, stubborn. I pulled and twisted until my fingers ached, but it wouldn't budge. I was too small, too weak. I stared at that box for what felt like hours, wondering what could possibly be inside that had my name on it but was locked away from me. I never told anyone I found it. Something told me I wasn't supposed to. I'd go back up there sometimes just to look at it, to run my fingers over my name etched in faded ink. What did they not want me to see? What was restricted about me? Years passed. The coldness in that house didn't thaw. If anything, it grew sharper. Nathan got his own car at 16. Emily got a sweet 16 party that made the society pages. When I turned 16, my mother handed me a card with $50 inside and told me to buy myself something practical. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. I learned to be invisible. I learned that love in the Rhodes family wasn't given freely, it was earned. And somehow, no matter what I did, I could never earn it. I thought maybe they just didn't like me. I thought maybe I was difficult, or strange, or broken in some way I couldn't see. I thought if I stayed quiet enough, small enough, perfect enough, maybe one day they'd see me the way they saw Nathan and Emily. I had no idea the truth was so much worse. I had no idea they'd been planning to erase me from the family long before I even understood what a will was. I became a ghost in my own home. By the time I hit high school, the divide in our family wasn't just clear, it was carved in stone. Nathan spent every weekend shadowing our father at the firm, learning how to read stock reports and close deals. Margaret paraded Emily through every charity luncheon and debutante ball in Virginia, molding her into the perfect society bride. And me, I disappeared into words. I wrote stories. Real ones, not the polite, sanitized things Margaret would approve of. I wrote about broken families and girls who didn't fit in houses that felt like prisons. I filled notebooks, then journals, then eventually loose pages I'd stuff under my mattress because I learned early that nothing in that house was truly private. Writing was the only thing that made me feel like I existed, like I mattered. My English teacher, Mrs. Brennan, was the first person who ever looked at my work and saw something worth saving. She had kind eyes and ink stains on her fingers, and she told me I had a gift. Senior year, she pulled me aside after class. "Samantha, I submitted 3 of your short stories to the National Young Authors Showcase. I hope you don't mind." I didn't mind. I was terrified and thrilled, and for the first time in my life, I felt seen. 3 months later, I won. First place, Mrs. Brennan told me the invitation would arrive by mail, that there'd be a ceremony in Washington, that publishers and agents would be there. I checked the mailbox every single day. Nothing came. Spring turned to summer. I told myself maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe I hadn't actually won. Maybe it was all a mistake. Then, one afternoon in August, I was looking for stamps in my mother's office. I opened her desk drawer and there it was. A cream-colored envelope with my name on it. The National Young Authors Showcase logo embossed in gold. Unopened. Hidden beneath a stack of Garden Club newsletters. My hands shook as I tore it open. "Congratulations, Samantha Rhodes." First place. The ceremony had been in June, 2 months ago. I stood there holding that invitation, reading words meant for a version of me that got to celebrate, that got to be proud. I felt something crack inside my chest. I found Margaret in the sunroom, arranging white roses in a crystal vase. "Mom," my voice sounded strange, hollow. "Why did you hide this?" She didn't even turn around. Just kept adjusting stems with those perfectly manicured fingers. "Hide what, Samantha?" I held up the envelope. She glanced at it, then back at her roses. "Oh, that? It would have interfered with Nathan's scholarship dinner. The family had obligations. You needed to learn your place." Learn your place. Like I was a dog being trained. Like my accomplishment was an inconvenience. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw that vase against the wall like I had when I was 9. Instead, I walked away. Because that's what I always did. I swallowed it down and disappeared. But something shifted in me that day. I started paying attention. Really paying attention. To the closed-door meetings between my parents. To the way they'd stop talking when I entered a room. To the documents that appeared and disappeared from my father's study. I became a spy in my own home. It was late September when I found it. Charles was at the firm. Margaret had taken Emily dress shopping. Nathan was at Yale for the weekend. The house was empty except for me. I stood outside my father's study for a long time before I turned the handle. His desk was exactly as he'd left it. Pens lined up perfectly, leather blotter centered. And there, in a stack of folders, I saw it. Will Rhodes Estate. My heart hammered as I opened it. The pages were thick, official, stamped with the seal of Carmichael and Associates. I scanned down to the section labeled Beneficiaries. Nathan Rhodes, primary heir. 60% of estate assets. Emily Rhodes, secondary heir. 40% of estate assets. And then nothing. A blank space. No third name. No Samantha. I read it 3 times, thinking maybe I'd missed something. Maybe there was another page. There wasn't. I didn't exist. Not in their future. Not in their plans. I was already erased. "Samantha." The voice behind me made me jump so hard I nearly dropped the folder. Dr. Denise Carmichael stood in the doorway. Briefcase in hand, her face pale. She'd been our family attorney for 20 years. I'd known her my entire life. "Samantha, not everything is meant to be read." Her voice was soft, almost apologetic. But she didn't tell me I was wrong. She didn't tell me it was a mistake. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the pages. "When was this signed?" She hesitated. "Sweetheart, you should talk to your parents." But I didn't need to talk to them. Because as I set the will down, my eyes caught another document beneath it. Family Financial Sustainability Plan, remove third dependent. Third dependent? Third child. Me. The date at the top was from 4 years ago. I was 14 when they decided to cut me out. I looked up at Denise. This woman who'd been at my birthday parties, who'd smiled at me across Thanksgiving tables. "You helped them do this." She opened her mouth, closed it. Then, finally, quietly, she said, "I'm sorry," and she left. Just walked out of that study and left me standing there holding proof that my family had been planning to erase me since. I was a child. I thought maybe it was a draft. I thought maybe they'd change their minds. That maybe if I was good enough, quiet enough, invisible enough, they'd see me and decide I was worth keeping. I didn't know the disinheritance was already signed, notarized, and filed. I didn't know that in the eyes of the Rhodes family, I was already gone. I left Brookfield Heights 2 weeks after I turned 21. 2 suitcases, A partial scholarship to a state university 3 hours away, and nothing else. No goodbye dinner. No tearful farewell. Margaret handed me an envelope with $500 and told me it was all I'd be getting. Charles didn't even come downstairs. Nathan was already working at the firm. Emily was engaged to a congressman's son, and I was finally, mercifully free. College was the first time I felt like I could breathe. I worked 2 jobs, wrote for the campus literary magazine, and lived in a cramped apartment with 3 other girls who became more like family than anyone who shared my blood. It was there in a poetry seminar during my junior year that I met Michael Lawson. He sat 2 rows ahead of me. Dark hair, always slightly messy, glasses he'd push up his nose when he was concentrating. He was brilliant. The kind of brilliant that made professors lean forward when he spoke. And somehow, impossibly, he noticed me. We were married by the time I was 28. Small ceremony, just us and a handful of friends. I didn't invite my family. Michael said said it was important to keep bridges intact, but I told him some bridges were meant to burn. He didn't push. Our daughter Grace came 3 years later, and holding her for the first time, I swore I'd give her everything I never had. Warmth, belonging, a mother who saw her, but even 3 hours away. Even with a new last name and a life I'd built from nothing, the Rhodes family found ways to seep back in. It started small. A letter here, a phone call there. Then came the invitations. Family dinners Michael was invited to without my name on the card. My father would call him directly, ask him to drive up to Brookfield Heights for business discussions. Investment opportunities, he called them. Networking. Michael thought it was generous. He thought they were finally accepting me by extension. I knew better. Thanksgiving, when Grace was 4. We drove up to Windermere Estate because Michael insisted it was important for Grace to know her grandparents. I watched Margaret fawn over Emily's second child, while barely glancing at Grace. I watched Nathan talk business with Michael, like they were old friends. And I watched my mother pull my husband aside before dinner, her hand on his arm, her voice low but not low enough. "You're wasting your brilliance on Samantha, Michael. She has nothing to offer you. You must see that by now." I stood frozen in the hallway, waiting for him to defend me. Waiting for him to tell her she was wrong, that I was his wife, that he loved me. He adjusted his tie, the same gesture my father always made, and he said nothing. Just nodded politely and changed the subject. We drove home in silence that night. Grace fell asleep in her car seat. Michael stared straight ahead at the road. I stared out the window and felt that old familiar crack in my chest widen. By the time I turned 35, my marriage was a shell. Michael came home later and later. Stopped asking about my day. Stopped touching me, except in those perfunctory ways married people do when they've forgotten why they fell in love. He was always on his phone. Always distracted, always somewhere else. Even when he was sitting right next to me. I told myself it was work stress. I told myself we just needed to reconnect. I told myself a lot of things that weren't true. I found the second phone by accident. I was looking for charging cables in his car and it slid out from under the passenger seat. Sleek, black, password protected. My stomach dropped. I knew before I even turned it on that whatever was on that phone would break something between us. I guessed the password on the 3rd try. Grace's birthday? He'd used our daughter's birthday to hide his secrets. The contacts were numbers I didn't recognize, but some had names. Stephen Ward, my father's business partner. The man who'd been at every Rhodes family function for the past 30 years. There were emails, so many emails. I scrolled through them with shaking hands, my breath coming short and fast. One from my father, subject line, Michael-succession proposal. I opened it. Michael, as discussed, the transition would place you in a senior advisory role with immediate equity options. The primary concern remains disposition of assets currently under Samantha's indirect claim. We need clean separation before we proceed. Her involvement complicates the structure we've spent years building. Another email. This one from Stephen Ward. She's not part of the plan. You know that. Focus on the assets. The timeline is critical. We can't have her muddying the waters when we're this close. My assets? They were talking about my assets. The trust fund from my grandmother that I'd barely touched. The small inheritance I'd received when she died. The only person in that family who'd ever loved me. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Or I thought it was mine. I sat in that car for over an hour, reading email after email, watching my entire marriage reframe itself. The way Michael had encouraged me to put everything in joint accounts. The way he'd suggested he handle our finances because he was better with numbers. The way he'd volunteered to be my power of attorney when I had surgery 2 years ago. Every kindness recast as calculation. Every gesture of love revealed as strategy. My best friend Lydia found me there when she came to drop off Grace from their playdate. She took one look at my face and knew. "Sam, what happened?" I handed her the phone, watched her face change as she read. She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. How long? I didn't know. That was the worst part. I didn't know when my husband had stopped being my partner and started being their tool. I didn't know it then, sitting in that car with Lydia's hand gripping mine, but the truth was so much worse than I imagined. My family hadn't just stayed in touch with Michael, they'd recruited him, groomed him, turned him into the son they'd always wanted and never had in me. They'd spent years weaving him into their plans, making him promises, showing him a future that didn't include me in it. And Michael, my brilliant, ambitious husband, had said yes. He'd chosen them. He'd chosen the road's money and the road's name and the road's future. And I was just the obstacle they needed to remove. The invitation came in the mail 3 weeks before Christmas. Heavy cardstock, my mother's perfect calligraphy, a family celebration at Windermere Estate, black tie, bring Grace. I hadn't been invited to a family event in over 5 years. Not since that Thanksgiving when I'd overheard Margaret telling Michael I had nothing to offer. I should have thrown the invitation away, should have known better. But there was a part of me, some small stupid part, that still hoped. That still wanted to believe maybe things had changed. Maybe now that I was 43, maybe now that Grace was growing up, maybe they'd finally see me as something more than the mistake they wished they could erase. Lydia begged me not to go. She sat at my kitchen table holding that invitation like it was a bomb. Sam, this is a trap. You know it's a trap. I knew. God, I knew. But Grace had been asking about her grandparents, about why we never saw them, about why she didn't have family like her friends did. How do you tell your 12-year-old daughter that your family erased you? That they see you as nothing more than a line item to be removed? So I said yes. I bought a dress. I told myself I could handle whatever they threw at me. The estate looked like something out of a magazine. Tiny white lights wrapped around every tree, wreaths on every door. Through the windows, I could see the chandelier in the dining room blazing, casting everything in warm gold light. It looked like love, like family, like everything I'd never had. Grace squeezed my hand as we walked up the stone steps. Mom, this place is huge. I squeezed back. Yeah, baby, it is. Everyone was already there when we arrived. Nathan stood by the fireplace with his wife Sophia, both of them looking like they'd stepped out of a Brooks Brothers catalog. Emily and her fiancé, Dr. Gavin Moore, were laughing with Aunt Patricia near the bar. Stephen Ward was deep in conversation with Dr. Carmichael by the window. And there, near the dining room entrance, was Michael, my husband, wearing a suit I didn't recognize, holding a drink I hadn't poured him, looking more comfortable in my family's home than he'd ever looked in ours. He saw me. Our eyes met across the room. He didn't smile, didn't wave, just gave a small nod and turned back to his conversation with my father. Something cold slid down my spine. Margaret appeared at my elbow, a vision in emerald silk and those damn pearls. Samantha, so glad you could make it. And this must be Grace. My, she's gotten tall. She didn't hug me, didn't hug Grace, just smiled that brittle smile and gestured toward the dining room. We're almost ready for dinner. The table was set like something from a magazine spread. China so delicate you could see light through it. Crystal glasses that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. Place cards in silver holders. I found mine at the far end next to Aunt Patricia. Grace was seated between Emily and Sophia, deliberately separated from me. Michael was up near my father, also separated. I sat down and felt the weight of something terrible settling over the room. Dinner was served, courses I barely tasted. Small talk that felt like walking through a minefield. Grace was quiet, picking at her food, sensing the tension even if she didn't understand it. Then my father stood, tapped his crystal glass with his knife. The room fell silent. We have an important update to share regarding the Rhodes estate. My chest tightened. Every instinct I had screamed at me to grab Grace and run. Charles continued, his voice measured, controlled, the same voice he used in boardrooms. As many of you know, Margaret and I have spent considerable time ensuring our legacy is protected, ensuring the Rhodes name continues with strength and dignity. Nathan stood. His smile was sharp, triumphant. We finalized the will last week. Emily and I will oversee all properties and assets moving forward. The firm, the estate, the investment portfolios, everything has been legally transferred and secured. The room started to spin. I gripped the edge of the table. What about me? My voice sounded small, childlike, exactly how they wanted me to sound. Margaret turned to me. That smile? God, that smile? The kind of smile you give a child who doesn't understand that the adults are talking? Samantha, darling, you didn't really think you'd inherit anything, did you? Laughter. Soft, polite, cruel. Nathan chuckled. Emily covered her mouth. Stephen Ward shook his head like I'd told a joke. Dr. Carmichael looked at her wine glass. And Michael, my husband, the father of my child. He stared at his plate like it was the most interesting thing in the world. This is a joke. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood. You can't just cut me out. I'm your daughter. Charles finally looked at me. Really looked at me. Legally, Samantha, we can do whatever we want with our assets. You've been informed? That's all that's required. Behind Margaret's chair, I saw it. A thick manila folder with a label I could read even from across the room. Rhodes Villa - transfer plan. My grandmother's villa. The one she'd left to me specifically in her will. The only thing I had left of her. My eyes caught on something else. A signature page sticking out from the folder, my signature. Except I'd never signed anything. I'd never agreed to transfer anything. That's my signature. I pointed, my hand shaking. On that document, I never signed that. Margaret glanced back, then at me, eyebrows raised. Of course you did, dear. Last year, when you signed the family trust documents, don't you remember? I didn't remember because it never happened. They'd forged it. They'd forged my signature, and they were sitting here in front of witnesses acting like it was normal. Like I was confused. Like I was the problem. Before I could say anything, before I could scream or cry or throw something, Grace came running in from the study. She'd excused herself earlier to use the bathroom, but she must have gotten lost. Must have wandered. She was holding papers. Her face was pale. Mom. Her voice shook. Mom, I found something. I think you need to see this. The room went silent. Every head turned toward my daughter. Margaret stood abruptly. Grace, sweetheart, those are private documents. Put them back. But Grace didn't move. She walked straight to me and handed me the papers. Her hands were trembling. I looked down. Financial records. Legal documents. And right there, at the top of the first page, a header that made my blood turn to ice. Lawson Rhodes merger agreement. Conditional divorce settlement. Asset distribution upon separation. They'd planned it. All of it? The divorce? The asset split. They'd made a deal with my husband to take everything I had and split it between them. And the date at the top of the document was from 2 years ago. 2 years, while I was still sleeping next to Michael every night. While I was still believing we were a family. Michael's face had gone white. My father stood slowly, and I finally understood. I wasn't just cut out of the will. I was being systematically erased. And everyone in this room had known Grace stood there in her navy dress. The one we'd picked out together for tonight. Holding that folder like it was made of glass. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. Mom, this has your name on it. All over it. She walked past Margaret, past my father's outstretched hand, trying to stop her, and placed the folder directly in front of me. The room held its breath. I opened it. My fingers felt numb, disconnected from my body. The first document was a property transfer deed. Rhodes, Coastal Villa. My grandmother's villa. The one overlooking the cliffs in Mendocino. The one where I'd spent every summer as a child. The only place in my entire childhood where I'd felt safe. The deed showed a transfer of ownership from the Rhodes Family Trust to Nathan Charles Rhodes and Emily Rhodes Moore. Date of transfer: 6 months ago. My eyes scanned down to the signature line. There it was. Samantha Rhodes Lawson. My signature. Except I'd never signed this. I'd never even seen this document. This isn't real. My voice came out hoarse. I never signed this. Dr. Carmichael shifted in her seat. She wouldn't meet my eyes. My father cleared his throat. Samantha, you're confused. We handled this last spring when you came up for Easter. We hadn't come up for Easter. Grace had strep throat. We'd stayed home. I flipped to the next page. A consent form. My signature again. Witnessed by Dr. Denise Carmichael, notarized, dated, sealed, and there at the bottom, a second witness signature. Michael Lawson. The room tilted. I looked up at my husband. You witnessed this. He'd gone pale, his knuckles white around his wine glass. Sam, I can explain. Margaret's voice cut through like a blade. Grace, put those documents down this instant. They're confidential family matters, not for children. But Grace didn't move. She'd inherited my stubbornness, my refusal to disappear. She picked up another sheet, her eyes scanning it quickly, and then she started reading aloud. Beneficiary removal, Samantha Rhodes Lawson, reason, known compliance with family directives, and unwillingness to align with Rhodes' family values and financial planning. Her voice got stronger with every word. Assets to be redistributed among remaining heirs. Primary estate, Nathan Charles Rhodes. Secondary estate, Emily Rhodes Moore. Tertiary considerations, none. Tertiary considerations, none. I was none. I was nothing. The room started to blur at the edges. I heard someone laugh. Nathan, of course it was Nathan. Jesus, Sam, you actually thought you were part of this? Dad just let you believe you had a claim. Kept you quiet. Kept you manageable. He leaned back in his chair like this was all terribly amusing. You were never part of the estate. You were the estate's biggest liability, Michael whispered, and I hated how broken he sounded, how much like a victim he was trying to make himself. I'm sorry, Sam. I didn't know it would go this far. Your father said it was just paperwork. He said you'd already agreed. He said, my father said. Stephen Ward said. They all said things, and Michael had believed them over me, had chosen them over me, had signed documents swearing he'd witnessed my consent when he knew. He had to have known. I'd never agreed to any of this. Aunt Patricia slammed her hand on the table so hard, the crystal rattled. Margaret, you forged your own daughter's signature? You had your son-in-law lie on legal documents. Do you understand what you've done? My mother took a slow sip of her wine, set the glass down with perfect precision, adjusted her pearls. When she spoke, her voice was calm, rational, like she was explaining something obvious to someone very slow. She was a liability, Patricia. She always has been. This is for the family's stability, for our legacy. Samantha has never understood what's required to maintain our position. I couldn't breathe. The walls of that dining room, the room where I'd eaten 1,000 silent meals as a child, felt like they were closing in. Grace moved closer to me, her shoulder pressing against mine, and then she reached into the folder one more time. There's more. Margaret's face changed. Just for a second, a flash of something that might have been panic. Grace, that's enough. But Grace pulled out a single sheet of paper, an email printed dated from 3 weeks ago. She held it up and read, from Stephen Ward to Margaret Rhodes. Subject, final steps. Message, once Samantha is removed from the will, we can proceed with the sale. The Mendocino property alone will net us $4.2 million. She'll never know. The offshore accounts are ready to receive the funds. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood slowly. Every eye in the room was on me. The villa. My grandmother's villa, the one she'd left specifically to me in her will. The one that was supposed to be mine, untouchable by the rest of the family. They were going to sell it. They'd forged my signature to transfer it, and now they were going to sell it and pocket the money, and I would never have known. Grace whispered, her voice small and scared and angry all at once. Mom. They were going to sell the villa behind your back. Something crystallized inside me. Something cold and clear and sharp as glass. I looked at my mother. At my father. At Nathan's smug face and Emily's wide eyes and Dr. Carmichael's guilt and Stephen Ward's calculation. I looked at Michael, still sitting there like he was the one who'd been wronged, and I smiled. Not the smile they'd taught me. Not the polite, submissive, disappear-into-the-wallpaper smile. A different smile. One that had teeth. Grace, get your coat. She didn't hesitate. Just nodded and ran toward the foyer. Margaret stood, her voice sharp. Samantha, we're not finished here. I picked up the folder. Every document, every forged signature, every piece of evidence of what they'd done. Yes, we are. My father's voice boomed across the room. If you walk out that door, you're done. No reconciliation. No second chances. I turned back to look at him. This man who'd never once told me he loved me, who'd treated me like a mistake to be managed. I was done the day you labeled a lockbox with my name and marked it restricted. I was done when I was 14 and you drafted documents to remove me. I was done every single day I lived in this house and you made me feel like I didn't deserve to breathe the same air. I headed for the door. Behind me, Nathan's voice, she's bluffing. She won't do anything. I stopped in the doorway. Grace was already there with our coats. I looked back one last time. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling my lawyer, not Dr. Carmichael, my lawyer, and we're going to examine every single document you've ever filed with my forged signature. Michael stood. Sam, please, I held up my hand. Don't. Just don't. Grace slipped her hand into mine. We walked out of Windermere Estate together. The door closed behind us with a sound like a gunshot. I didn't look back. In the car, Grace buckled her seatbelt and looked at me with eyes too old for 12 years. What are we going to do, Mom? I started the engine. Made my decision. We're going to take back everything they stole. The first call I made when we got home was to Gerald Finch. The attorney Lydia had recommended 6 months ago when I'd first suspected something was wrong with our finances. He answered on the third ring. I told him everything. Every document, every forged signature, every witness who'd lied. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then he said 5 words that changed everything. Samantha, I think we can win. The second call I made was riskier, more dangerous, but also necessary. I pulled up the contact information for the Rhodes Coastal Villa. The property manager, a woman named Claire who'd worked for my grandmother and then for the family trust, who'd known me since I was a child, who'd sent me birthday cards every year even when my own mother forgot. Claire, it's Samantha Rhodes. I need you to do something for me, and I need you to do it tonight. 2 days ago, everything ended. Or maybe it finally began. I'm still not sure which. My parents sent the official letter by courier, not even by mail. A man in a black suit appeared at my door at 8 in the morning and handed me a manila envelope with the Rhodes family crest embossed on the seal. Inside was a single document. Formal, cold, legal. Notice of complete beneficiary removal and family disownment. Signed by Charles Anthony Rhodes and Margaret Elizabeth Rhodes. Witnessed by Dr. Denise Carmichael and Stephen James Ward. Effective immediately. They thought I'd collapse. Thought I'd call them sobbing, begging them to reconsider. Thought I'd disappear quietly, like I'd been doing my entire life. They were wrong. I sat at my kitchen table holding that letter, reading it over and over until the words stopped meaning anything. Grace came downstairs for breakfast, saw my face, and didn't ask. Just wrapped her arms around me from behind and held on. Lydia arrived 20 minutes later. I'd texted her a photo of the letter and she'd dropped everything to come over. She read it once and then set it on fire in my sink. Screw them. We're calling Gerald. Gerald Finch answered on the first ring. I could hear the click of his keyboard in the background. The organized chaos of a lawyer's office. I told him about the disownment letter, about the courier, about how my parents thought this was the end. When I finished, there was a pause. Then Gerald's voice measured and thoughtful. Samantha, I've been reviewing the documents Grace brought us from that dinner. The transfer deed for the villa. There's something your family either didn't notice or hoped you wouldn't. My heart started pounding. What? He explained it carefully. The villa wasn't part of the main Rhodes estate. It had been my grandmother's personal property, left specifically to me in a separate will that predated the family trust by 15 years. The transfer Nathan and Emily thought they'd completed wasn't legally valid because the villa required dual consent, mine and the estate executor's. Dr. Carmichael had signed as executor using my forged signature, but the original deed had a protection clause. Any transfer had to be verified by the named beneficiary in person with 2 independent witnesses. They'd skipped that step, which meant legally, technically, I still owned half. How long do we have before they realize? I asked. Gerald's voice was grim. If they're smart, days. If they're arrogant and think they've already won, maybe a week. I made my decision in the space between heartbeats. Gerald, sell the villa. Sell it in 48 hours. Before they figure out I still have legal claim. Silence on the other end. Then a low whistle. That's aggressive, Samantha, and risky. If we move this fast, there's no going back. I thought about that lockbox in the attic, about the hidden invitation to the writing showcase, about Michael's secret phone and the forged signatures and my mother's calm voice saying I was a liability, about Grace reading those documents aloud while my entire family watched and did nothing. There's already no going back. They made sure of that. Gerald's keyboard started clicking. Okay, I have a few contacts. High net worth buyers looking for coastal property. Let me make some calls. This is going to get ugly, Samantha. I looked at Grace, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, like her world wasn't imploding, like she hadn't just watched her entire extended family reveal themselves as monsters. It already is ugly. At least this way, I'm choosing how it ends. Gerald worked through the night. I know because he sent me updates every few hours. Potential buyer interested. Inspection waived. Cash offer. By 7 the next morning, we had a deal. $4.4 million. $200,000 more than what Stephen Ward had projected in that email. The sale would close in 48 hours pending title verification. I didn't sleep. I kept waiting for my phone to ring, for my father to call with threats or bribes or whatever weapon he thought would work. But there was nothing. Silence, which somehow felt worse. Lydia stayed over, camping out on my couch, refusing to leave me alone. When they find out they're going to lose their minds, she said around midnight. Both of us sitting in my dark living room drinking wine we couldn't really taste. I stared at my phone. Good. Let them feel what I've felt my entire life. The call came 36 hours later. Not from my father. From my mother? Her voice on the other end was ice-wrapped in fury. What have you done? I was folding laundry in my bedroom. Grace was at school. The house was quiet. Peaceful. I exercised my legal rights to my own property, Margaret. Something you tried to take from me. She was breathing hard, struggling to control her rage. You can't sell that villa. It belongs to the family. I sat down on my bed, kept my voice calm. No, it belonged to Grandma Rose. She left it to me. You forged my signature to try to steal it. But the transfer wasn't legal. Gerald verified it this morning. The sale closes in 12 hours. The scream that came through the phone was inhuman, primal. I heard crashing in the background, glass breaking, Charles's voice sharp and commanding. Then Margaret again. Closer to the phone now. We will sue you. We will destroy you. Do you understand me? You will have nothing. I smiled even though she couldn't see it. I already have nothing, remember? You made sure of that 2 days ago. You disowned me, cut me out, removed me from the family. This villa is the only thing I have left and I'm taking it. 30 minutes later, a black Mercedes screeched into my driveway. I watched from the window as Margaret got out, still in her designer athleisure. No pearls for once. Her face twisted with rage. She pounded on my door hard enough that I worried she'd break it. I opened it slowly, stood in the doorway, blocking her entrance. She was shaking. Actually shaking? You ruined everything. That villa was supposed to fund Nathan's expansion, Emily's wedding. That villa was ours. Behind her, neighbors were watching. Mrs. Chen from across the street had paused her gardening. The Johnsons slowed their morning jog. I didn't care. Let them watch. Let them see what the perfect Rhodes family really looked like. You ruined me first, Margaret. You ruined me when I was 9 years old, and you told me I ruined everything I touched. You ruined me when you hid my award and told me to learn my place. You ruined me when you forged my signature and planned to sell my inheritance behind my back. This time I chose myself. She lunged forward like she might actually hit me. I didn't move, just stared at her until she stopped. Her hand raised, her face contorted. I am your mother. Her voice broke on the last word. You were never my mother. Mothers protect their children. Mothers love their children. You treated me like a mistake you couldn't figure out how to fix. She dropped her hand. For just a second, I saw something in her eyes that might have been pain or regret. But then it hardened back into that familiar ice. This family will never forgive you. I stepped back, started to close the door. I don't need your forgiveness. I need you to leave me alone. The door shut with a final click. I locked it, slid down to the floor and let myself shake. Let myself cry. Let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. The sale closed 6 hours later. Gerald called with the confirmation. The money was in an account only I could access. The villa was gone. Sold to a tech entrepreneur from Seattle who planned to turn it into a writer's retreat. Grandma Rose would have liked that night. Grace and I ordered pizza and watched movies and pretended everything was normal. She didn't ask about the screaming in the driveway. Didn't ask about why I kept checking my phone. Just curled up next to me on the couch and held my hand. Around 10, she looked up at me. Are we going to be okay, Mom? I kissed her forehead. Yeah, baby. We're going to be better than okay. I believed it when I said it this morning. I woke up to silence. No calls, no texts, nothing. I made coffee. Got Grace ready for school. Lived a normal morning in a life that felt anything but normal. When I went to get the mail, there was a plain white envelope in my mailbox. No stamp, no postmark, no return address. Someone had hand-delivered it. My hand started shaking before I even opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. Heavy cardstock, expensive. The kind my mother used for her personal correspondence. The handwriting was hers too. Elegant, controlled. Each letter perfectly formed. The message was short. You may have sold the villa, Samantha, but you still belong to this family. Blood doesn't wash away. Contracts don't erase history. And we're not done with you. Not by a long shot. Consider this your only warning. No signature. None needed. I'm sitting at my kitchen table now. That note in front of me, my coffee going cold, my hands won't stop shaking. It's been 2 days since they disowned me. 2 days since I thought I'd finally broken free. But this note says something different. It says they're not letting me go. It says whatever I've done, whatever I've taken back, whatever small victory I've claimed, it's not enough. They're coming for me. I just don't know how yet. Or when. Grace comes down the stairs, backpack ready, asking if I'm okay. I fold the note, slip it in my pocket, smile at my daughter. I'm fine, baby. Everything's fine. But we both know I'm lying. Before we dive into what happened, if you love dramatic real-life stories, that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Drop a comment below if you've ever felt invisible in your own family.